Welcome to PlannerPod, the podcast of the Planner magazine. We're the official member magazine of the Royal Town Planning Institute. I'm Simon Wicks, I'm the editor of the Planner, and with me today I have my colleague Laura Edgar, our news editor. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
And we have two very special guests. Today we have with us a guest host, Francis Keenan, who is currently, as we record, the Royal Town Planning Institute Young Planner of the Year, although by the time this comes out, you won't be, will you, Francis?
Unfortunately not, no.
So thank you for joining us. And we'll have a chat with you later as well. But our main guest today is the Chief Executive of the Royal Town Planning Institute, or perhaps I should say the outgoing Chief Executive of the Royal Town Planning Institute, Dr. Victoria Hills. Hello, Victoria.
Hello, delighted to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. Before we get to our conversations, though, we're going to do our planner picks. We've got a new issue of the planner out. It's got a really marvellous cover by our favourite illustrator, Olivia Whitworth. We've got articles about new towns. We've got an interview with the chair of the New Towns Task Force, Sir Michael Lyons. We've got a really fascinating piece by our Ben on planning for prisons and the prison estate. And we have a piece on play, children's play as well as all our usual content. Anyway, Laura, what's your pick from this issue?
Yeah, I just wanted to draw attention to Ben's feature on the crowded prison system and how planning can be used to ease the capacity issues that have been identified that are well known. The MOJ is looking to build or to increase capacity by 14,000 places, or 15%, by 2031. Ben looked at the Crown development route, and he speaks to Richard Ford of Pinson Masons about special development orders and how they can be used to increase capacity and deliver the spaces that we need. I thought it was also interesting to note that most new prisons are sited in rural areas, but obviously there are implications with integration, citing them in rural areas, whether that's integration with the community or rehabilitation when people leave the prison system. So yeah, it's a great piece. Touches on placemaking and balancing competing needs. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you think.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Laura. My pick for this issue is our article about the loss of children's play spaces to new development and within new development. This is a really good piece that's been written by Hugh Morris, one of our regular contributors. And it's got some fairly shocking statistics that are worth taking note of. Essentially that 15% of children aged 2 to 15 are obese, according to the NHS. 27% are overweight, according to the NHS. And 3.5 million children, only 3.5 million children, take part in sport or physical activity for 60 minutes on average or more every day. 2.2 million are getting less than 30 minutes exercise. And one of the reasons for this is a lack of accessible play space. We've had a huge number, something like 800 playgrounds have been closed down in the last decade or so, I think. Lots of new development doesn't necessarily make provision for young people. So this is a really important issue that we've taken a look at in the latest issue of the Planner. We're looking at what policies can be brought in to change this. We've got interviews with Play England's executive director, Eugene Minogue, and as I mentioned before, a really fantastic illustration by Olivia Whitworth, which is well worth the price on the cover, although there isn't a price on the cover. Well worth a look. So take a look at that. So those are just a couple of the highlights from the latest issue of the Planner. Please do pick it up. If you're an RTPI member, you will receive it as a matter of course. If you're not an RTPI member, go to our website, find out how you can subscribe. So, Victoria, hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us. You've been at the RTPI since April 2018?
That's correct.
7.5 years, but you're now moving on.
I am, Simon. All good things must come to an end, and it would appear it's my time to check out shortly.
Shortly, at the end of the year.
That's correct, yeah.
So could I ask you, first off, why? Why are you leaving this fantastic job, Victoria?
It is a question I'm asking myself at times, but actually, as I joke, but actually it's a serious point. Knowing when the right time to go is, I think, really important. And that's a very deeply personal thing for individuals, depending on where they are and what they're doing. But coming into the role, and it's been a real privilege, I must say, and I've had an absolute blast doing this, just to be given the opportunity by the Board of Trustees, by the membership to deliver for them over what will now be nearly 8 years. It's just been a real privilege and I've had a lot of fun doing it. But I did have a few big things I wanted to do coming into the organisation. And I feel that I've now taken things as far as I can get. The board wanted me to launch a new corporate strategy. I did that back in 2020 to really articulate the purpose of the organisation, the profession. We've since refined that with a new strategic plan launched this year. So that's 2 done. I wanted to finish off the job my predecessor, Trudy Elliott, had started in transforming the organisation, whether that be governance, whether it be about the right team in place to deliver for members. And that's all been restructured and done. I also wanted to do the building and, great treasured asset that our members have is our forefathers, our past presidents, our past board chose to buy real estate in the City of London 25 years ago. And, a great investment. But the building did need a bit of TLC. So we've delivered collectively a significant retrofit project. So those are all things that I wanted to do. But the overarching thing I wanted to do was to turn the conversation around on planning and planners, their role in society, the respect and their recognition, if you like, for delivery. So I've been incredibly busy on that with the team and getting the right team in place to help deliver on that. And I feel that we've really pushed that along quite a lot. But for me personally, I've taken it as far as I can.
Okay.
And I've set it up nicely for the incoming chief executive.
So I'm going to ask a quick follow-up on that. You mentioned this issue of broadly the conversation around planning and planners. And, one of your goals has been to improve the quality of that conversation over the course of the last few years. Because, as I've written in the latest issue of the Planner, actually, when we first started the magazine in 2013, I would say that planning was in the doldrums. And reputationally, it was very poor.
Yeah.
Did you make a sort of conscious effort to address that?
I did. Indeed, it's the thing that attracted me to the job, actually, because I left practice back in 2018. And again, I was asking myself at that time, why would I leave a major regeneration project to come and run the Professional Institute? But the opportunity and the challenge to turn around the conversation was something I thought, having done my pupillage under 3 mayors of London and looking at how they were able to tell the story about what they were trying to do, there might be an opportunity for me to bring some of that skills and experience into my own professional institute that I'd joined as a student member 3 decades beforehand. And so that was the opportunity. And my first initial observation as I left practice and stepped into this professional arena was the planners were very good at talking to other planners. And it almost existed entirely in its own ecosystem. And there was a slight sense that I got from people I spoke to, which was, but do they know what we're saying about them? And I think they didn't, or they didn't want to know. And so we've had to look at all of that and broaden it out. So it was a very conscious thing that we need to step beyond our very important bubble and we need to step into places perhaps we're uncomfortable being in. And that's been the challenge and the push for me and the bit I've enjoyed.
One observation I would make actually from my position is that you have been very good at stepping into uncomfortable spaces and having your say. And I suspect that's something the membership itself has noticed and appreciates, without being too sycophantic here.
It helps to have a thick skin.
Yeah.
And actually just keep calm and carry on. That's what us planners do. So we're well made for it.
Excellent. Frances, you have some questions, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. My first question is just around kind of change. So, Victoria, what would you say is the biggest change that the RTPI has seen since you became chief executive?
Well, thank you, Frances. And firstly, one of the little changes we did was to sort of help elevate the status of the Young Planner of the Year. And I think you've done a fantastic job, by the way, and well done and all the best for your future career. I think just building up the point we just made, it's actually getting some recognition and respect for the role of planning and planners and why it's important in the economy, in society, in the environment. And when I did my recce, if you like, of going around and speaking to VIPs before I started at Royal Town Planning Institute, I asked people, what do you think of the RTPI? And some of the more brutal comments, I won't attribute them, but that were made to me privately before I was in post were, well, we don't think anything of you because we don't hear anything. We don't see you. You're not visible. It's nothing. And so there was a real void out there. So I think that's one of the things I have led, but with an excellent team around me, is to fill that void, to find the narrative, to actually harness all of our excellent research that we were doing and have done for many, many decades, but turning it into storytelling and something meaningful, not just for our members, but for the public and politicians and the broader society. So I think, Francis, that's the thing that I would reflect has changed most, is we are talked about quite regularly now, and we often feature in prime ministerial, chancellor, ministerial statements. There's a recognition of the role in planning and planners. We may not always like all of the framing of it, but at least we're being part of the conversation. I don't think we were there when I first joined.
I agree. You can definitely see that in the news recently, for sure. Okay, so kind of another question from me. Do you think the broader context around planning has changed since in your 7 years?
Well, yes, so much has changed, not just planning, but society more generally. And through this time I've been at the Royal Town Planning Institute, of course, we've lived through something that we never thought was possible. I remember reading about it on scenario grids when I was working back on the Olympic Games, but no one actually thought that there would be this kind of COVID-style pandemic. It hit us and it hit society. And what that did, as tough as it was, period for us all to live through, it shone a light on the importance of places and placemaking and access to nature, access to the environment, access to services. All the things that we know as planning and planners are really, really important to think about. Proximity of location, having access to services, access to quality housing. We all know this, but I think what it helped do was shine a light across broader society that perhaps not always well for everybody, and not everybody had a fair access to all of these things. So I think, a broader societal thing that's changed is there's greater recognition of the important components that we know as planning, and the public might not call it planning, but effectively creating good places where, children can go out and play, places where people can walk, access public transport, all the things that we've learned that are very good in our own professional disciplines and training. I think society now gets that, and as a consequence, they're demanding more, which perhaps makes our role even more important but challenging.
Do you think, Victoria, that when we talk about planning with a wider audience in particular, we perhaps shouldn't use the term planning? We should use something like placemaking or place shaping, something that sort of feels a bit more tangible and concrete?
Well, I mean, it's a continual conversation, and I would say placemaking has been a helpful term. We now got a new kid on the block, which is the built environment. Nature has also sort of bubbled up as a big buzzword. I would say running the Royal Town Planning Institute, we probably stick true to our roots because we know what it is. It's in the Royal Charter and we are the town planners. But that's not to say we shouldn't broaden out the narrative and come up with new ways of explaining things. But I think it's worked well for us since 2014. I think we should probably stick with it.
I just had a picture in my mind of a T-shirt which says "We are the town planners" on it. Maybe with your face as well, Victoria.
No, please not.
Laura, do you want to come in?
Just moving on from that, I was wondering what has been your highlight given all the change and going through the pandemic? What stands out to you as your highlight over the past few years?
It's really hard, isn't it, to come up with one thing in this period of time. And I was reflecting on the certain things that have bubbled up in terms of let's just take some physical highlights. Redoing the London office, retrofitting it, putting our best foot forward for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Opening a physical office in Cardiff. These are tangible physical things that I will leave behind. It's very difficult to take something away when you've opened it or retrofitted it. The digital investment that we've made has been significant. We've just now got proper online learning. We've got better access to all our products, and that will continue to improve. A lot of stuff that members won't see that's gone on behind the scenes is really, really important. I'm really proud, actually, of the work of the team. And by the team, I mean the broader executive team, but also the presidential team and the General Assembly members and all the volunteers who sit across all the various committees and panels and the board. And I think that a big achievement for us is through quite a big period of change in governance, and many other professional institutes, remain nameless, have struggled to navigate their way through some of these governance issues. We've sailed a very steady ship through this period, and I am really, really proud of that. So I'm now a few weeks away from leaving, and my mission will be to get to the end of that journey intact, with the reputation improved and respected in a way that, I think we can all be proud of. But there are so many aspects, Laura, and it would be remiss of me not to mention the Chartered Town Planner Apprenticeship we launched in 2019. That was a real moment, and hundreds of individuals have had their life transformed by the opportunity to take a career on when they wouldn't ordinarily have been able to do that. And that's changing lives. That is a huge thing. I joined up working with the other built environment institutes. Nobody talked to each other 10 years ago. It was all very much in silos. We've signed MOUs on EDI. We want to do more on careers. I think this partnership working is really important. And I'm also really proud of the international profile that we've been able to create and join up with some of our international partners. And indeed, I've now got friends for life through some of my chief execs who run the international institutes, and that's been great. But I think overall, what am I most proud of? I think I'm just very proud of running a membership body. I'm really proud of the work of our members. Just look at what they are doing day in, day out, what they're delivering, what they're contributing to. I think that for me is the best outcome for anyone running a membership institute. Why we're doing it is to support our members from cradle to grave in its crudest form. And when I look at what our members are delivering now in the public sector, private sector, third sector, internationally, domestically, I'm incredibly proud of all of that. And I think it's the Institute that provides the support for them to do that. And I think that's definitely something to celebrate.
It's really lovely to hear all that. And I definitely, from travelling with you numerous times throughout the year and going to the American Planning Conferences, can see that the relationships you've built, Victoria, it's a testament to yourself and the Institute for kind of, I suppose, making those conferences happen, I guess. I think it'd be interesting to know, because everything in planning doesn't always go smoothly, and with the political changes ahead, what do you think hasn't gone very well, or anything that you'd maybe wish you'd done differently?
I mean, you are right. No, you don't get everything. And, I would have liked not to have had a pandemic, by the way. I think we would be a lot further forward without that. But everything happens for a reason, and we've changed and evolved as a part of it. One of the things that I would have liked to have sorted out before I leave, and it looks, it's in doubt whether we'll get there, is this recognition from government that actually, restricting an age for people to come into apprenticeships is the solution. That's their view, but we don't share that view. And we have tried so hard to convince them that, broadening out the apprenticeship route, why discriminate on age? We understand that there is a huge number of people sat at home doing nothing, younger people, and we all desperately want to get them into training and employment. But narrowing the opportunity for this broad, diverse cohort that we have brought in through the apprenticeship and say you have to be 21 years or younger. I'm personally disappointed I've not been able to change the government's view on that. But I've got 6 weeks left here, so we'll keep going. We will keep going. Yeah. If I was going to reflect back across the 8 years, it has all gone incredibly well.
Yeah.
And we haven't had any governance hoo-has. We haven't had a financial crisis. We haven't lost members. We haven't had any rows with government. There is just one thing that I would have liked to have fixed. And it's funny, actually, this apprenticeship, because it's the one thing that popped up on my leaving lunch of my old job was a few issues to do with this apprenticeship. And it's been a golden thread throughout my entire time here that's kept me really busy trying to solve problems related to it. And here we are right at the end, and we still have a bit of an issue. But you know what? There's an incoming chief executive. They're going to need a burning platform. This is a great one for them to sort out.
Oh, and I always thought that was, your commitment to that was really quite impressive. The fact that, because initially they rejected it, didn't they?
That was the problem on my leaving lunch when I was, before I'd even started the RTPI, I took a call from the team. We've got a problem. It's been rejected.
Yeah.
And that's before I even started. So it's just...
But you wouldn't take no for an answer, would you?
Absolutely not. No. That was when we first started to harness the power of our public affairs capacity. Let's get telling this story. We won that battle. And we won the war. We got it. We got the Chartered Town Planner apprenticeship through. And as I say, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people, not just young people, all sorts of ages have come through and have got this amazing career off the back of it. And it's been transformational for those individuals. So, I was very passionate about it because it's not often you get to do something that really changes lives.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing this for a number of years now. And we are where we are at the moment.
Yeah.
But, it's not over yet.
Absolutely not. And I think, we've got a government which has placed a massive premium on growth and on the role of planning within that. And it can't happen without people, without the planners in place.
Yes, and I think by the time this is broadcast, our State of the Profession report will have been publicised. And, I would urge the listeners to have a look at that. It's a bit of a wake-up call. We've got some amazing initiatives by government, public practice, pathways to planning. But what I'm on the record as saying is it's nowhere near enough scale-wise to deliver the deficit that we've identified. We're going to have to find another way. If it's not going to be the apprenticeship, it needs to be something else.
And it's not just planners, is it? It's also ecologists, it's conservation specialists, it's all these people, these specialist knowledge as well that need to be part of the process.
Absolutely. And we're, disciplines across the broader built environment professions, I should say. We are, very hopeful and confident that AI will help us on some of this. But you are going to need chartered professionals to be involved with decision making and signing some of this stuff off. That does require people rather than bots.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wonder, what have you learnt about yourself over the last 7.5 years? With everything that's gone on, how have you changed? And perhaps changed your approach to how you work?
Well, I've been going through a period of maturity myself, actually. So I would have to reflect back that, yes, I have changed. I had a big milestone birthday last year, turned 50, and it provides an opportunity to reflect on, the journey you're on. I think one of the things I've got better at doing in a leadership role is, as well as acknowledging and recognising the importance and power of that leadership role and really treasuring the responsibility, but also, the honour that it's been bestowed on me from the members to look after their treasured professional institute. It really, I really understand that more than perhaps I did when I first started out. But one of the things I've got better at doing is listening, but also, and sorry if this is going to sound a little bit soft, but it's trusting my instinct. I've got much better at listening to people and looking strategically at what's going on, and actually taking a little bit longer to understand things. Perhaps that's been something it doesn't come naturally to me, Laura, because I like to move really quickly.
Yeah.
And people who work with me say, for goodness sake, slow down, you're not going to take the team with you, etc., etc. That's been a common theme throughout many of my reviews in previous roles and current roles, is you've got to slow down a bit. So it doesn't come naturally to me, but I feel that I have got better at slowing down to listen and play a bit more of a long game and be more patient. Not quite there yet, it's work in progress, but I think I'm getting there. And that's really important when you're running an organisation like the Royal Town Planning Institute, because it's a very broad church, a lot of different views as to what the future looks like, even different views as to what the past looked like,
Yep.
And so, you've really got to try and take everybody with you. And to do that, you can't go at 90 miles an hour and be really kind of... That one of my nicknames is Speedy Gonzales, just slow down. And, I think I'm getting better at that.
I would say that given the sheer volume of LinkedIn posts over the years, written by people who've been out for a morning run with you, and find you sort of disappearing into the distance as they're puffing along.
Well, those days are a bit over now. I might be puffing trying to catch up, but yes, I take the point.
You're more of a cyclist now, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And just touching on what you said, Victor, I think from personally meeting you, traveling with you, I think the passion really comes across, and I think it's a great attribute to have. What advice would you give 2018 Victoria, who's just about to join the Royal Town Planning Institute? And I think it kind of lends itself to my question around young planners, is that, having the benefit of hindsight, and if a young planner wanted to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give them?
I mean, for the young planner bit, that's probably easier, and it's advice that I think it still stands true today. It's just take every opportunity and volunteer for it, even if you don't think that you're qualified or have the experience and can't do it. If you think, no, I couldn't possibly, I would always spin it around the other way and say, what's stopping you? Because all the roles that I've gone into in senior roles, if I had actually studied it word for word, line by line, I would never have stepped into those roles. But I've always thought, well, if not me, then who? And go for it. So that's the broad sort of advice I would give for young planners, but really anybody listening in, career returners, people who've taken a break. You've just really got to go for it, because now I'm the north side of 50. My goodness, time goes really fast. And all of a sudden you can see your career, which seemed to be a long way ahead of you, is now behind you the other way. And, don't want to sound like a really old person when I say that, but it's true, Simon. Do you feel the same?
I'm further north than you are, Victoria, so I can identify with that, absolutely.
But you can see the runway might be starting to run out of, room.
Oh, I'm planning my retirement already.
Yeah.
Mentally, I'm in my camper van going around the coast of England.
I'm not there yet. I want to keep building the runway. Because I actually genuinely feel for others. I'm just getting going. I'm odd like that. I've got lots of friends who want to retire. I'm not one of them. And Simon sounds amazing in the camper van, but I just want to keep going because I'm having a lot of fun with this. So I think probably the advice I would give to me going into this role in 2018 would be, number one, everybody here genuinely wants it to be a great success, and for you to be a success, and you can just get on with it. And the reason I'm saying that is I'd left a very political environment. I've been there for 16 years. It was a lot of fun working for all three mayors of London, but you can imagine big politics, small politics, all different types of politics. And it took me at least 6 months to wash the political environment out my hair to realise, oh, so all I have to do is keep members happy. Right, okay, I get that now. Okay, that's fine. Okay, happy members, they'll join, they'll come back, and all the rest of it. And I think probably the advice I would have going in to the job would be, look, nobody's out to get you. There's no gotcha moments here. You've just been given this great opportunity to move this organisation forward. That said, it was good that I probably needed that period to decompress after 16 years at City Hall. It was a lot of fun, but it's a very high-paced environment.
Yeah.
I guess possibly the other advice that I would say is, look, just enjoy every moment and treat everything, really as the last time you might get to do it, because there's always, with a membership organisation, there's a lot of change, people coming and going, different volunteers, different changes, and it really does go quite fast. Yeah. I can't believe it's nearly 8 years.
I can recall when we interviewed you, when you first came into the role, and we still use the photograph we took of you, that lovely photo in red. So, I mean, there's an interesting point there. I mean, years ago, I read a Sunday supplement interview with somebody, and they would always ask them as part of the interview, what's your life philosophy? And this one person in particular said, bite off more than you can chew and chew like mad. And when I speak to you, Victoria, always sort of that comes back into my head. So my question to you is, what drives you? What are you passionate about? And this can be beyond work as well, but what is it that drives you?
I mean, I do sometimes ask that question myself.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that I'm one of those individuals who's just naturally driven, and I always want to make the best of every opportunity. And in fact, the older I get, I look and think, wow, I have been given these opportunities. I really want to. So I can't explain it, but I just have this desire to keep going forward and always do the best. And I was very fortunate, but perhaps it goes back to going to the school that I went to. I only went to a state school, but it was a girls' school. And in the late 80s, we were taught that we could do anything we wanted and we could go anywhere. But all we had to do was work really hard. And I think that discipline, that I was very fortunate that this school I went to really set some very strong foundations for me going forward, as did the structure of my family life. My father had his own business,
Right.
and still does. He's 82, but he's still working. He never stopped working.
What does he do?
Well, he's not really working now, but he's an extra athlete, so he still teaches 2 spin classes a week at 82. The work ethic is something I've inherited from him.
Right.
And as I've got older, I've teamed the sports and the work ethic together. And for me, the two go absolutely hand in hand. If I can remain fit and healthy, then I can be successful at work. And increasingly, that's the way that my social life is going with other people like me.
Right.
There's a few weirdos like that. And so I think I'm just, what drives me, it's just an instinct.
Yeah.
I just want to keep going.
Yeah.
Can't put it any simpler than that. I'm not after gongs. I'm not after awards, although I've won a couple recently, which is amazing. I'm not after a real material kind of existence. If I was, I would have gone into a slightly different career and commercial. I just really like what I'm doing and making a difference. And I guess in its purest sense is about the people, isn't it? If you're adding value and making something better for people, then that's great. But I am very fortunate that I do think I've been bestowed some good genes from my family to be very driven. And if any of my cousins are listening now, because I've got a very big family, I've got 21 cousins, and we have an in-family joke.
Right.
It's the Hillsey gene. I've never told anyone this publicly before, but it's the Hillsey gene, because I have a number of high-performing cousins who have done really well in their careers, and my sister's done very well. And we joke and we say it's the Hillsey gene. And that may sound arrogant, but, we're just, it's a funny thing for us, because actually we feel like we really, we just keep going.
Was there kind of a competitiveness within your family as well, and among all these sort of multiple cousins and siblings?
I'm sure the rivalry is there, and would have been there amongst with my father's generation, with his brothers and sisters, and it carries on. And I think as long as it's healthy competition, which it is, I've got cousins in all different walks of life, but it's just something there, and I'd never really articulated like that in a public way before. Maybe I'll be regretting saying that, but
it's going into the title.
The Hillsey gene lives on, and I will be forever grateful to my ancestors for what they have given me, and that keep going and self-motivation, being driven.
Excellent.
Do you have a message for RTPI members as you leave?
Well, apart from thank you very much for letting me run your fabulous organisation for so many years, and it's been an amazing honour and a lot of fun. My main message to RTPI members is keep calm, carry on, and make the most of this moment that planning is having at the moment, not just in the UK, but internationally. Planning is hugely recognised by His Majesty's government, but it's also recognised by international counterparts, UN Habitat, the Irish government. Everybody's recognising this important role of planning. And so now is the time to, step away from the buts, if buts, and, I'm not quite saying moaning, but, this isn't right, that isn't right. Just make the most of this moment now. Moments like this only come along every decade or so, and we've got a real moment in planning, so just go for it.
So is that what you feel the RTPI's focus should be from now on?
Making the most of the recognition of the important role in planning. For example, for UN Habitat, it's all about the homes. For the Irish government, it's all about the growth in the economy. In the UK, it's very much about the economy, but also delivering on green energy, delivering the homes. So there is a moment here for us to say, we're here, we're part of that solution, we need the investment. And that's before we've even got onto new towns and devolution, which is a massive agenda, local government reorganisation within that. Yes, it's going to be hugely challenging. But I would say make the most of this and make sure to all of my members, public and private sector and third sector, make sure you're at the front of the queue with a hand up saying we're here to help.
And do you have a message for your successor? Because we've described a situation there that is really very big and there's a lot of upheaval and transformation. There's a lot, and let's be honest, they're pretty big shoes to step into here. Do you have a message for whoever follows you, or are you going to sort of keep still on that?
Well, listen, I think it's a very exciting time for the Institute to welcome in, you say it's big shoes, but there could be bigger feet about to step into this. And I hope through the profile I've built that we're able to attract some amazing talent that, it's going to be a very difficult decision for the board, no doubt, but they'll make the right one. My message for my successor, apart from, I'm always at the end of a phone and I'm here for you, is just make sure that you enjoy it and have fun. It will be challenging at times. You will get lots of advice, challenging views, people, with their views on what good looks like. But just make it into the role that you want, that you feel. You would have thought a lot about all of this going through the application process as to what the future looks like. Make sure you mould it into your role. And I hope I've rolled the pitch nicely for you. And do look after it for me.
Of course. And as for you, have you had the chance to think about what's next for you and what you'd like to achieve in your new role with the Chartered Institute of Building, where you're going to be the chief executive there? Is that right? Yeah.
That's correct. So I start in January 2026 at the Chartered Institute of Building. And, in that broad landscape of the built environment, I think it's fair to say over recent decades, there will be parts of the professional landscape that have had a real voice. And I think the builders and the construction side of it, they're not one of them.
Okay.
And so I think an opportunity for them to find their voice and have a real recognition of the important role that they're doing also as part of this ecosystem within the built environment is going to be really, really important. And the thing that excites me is, is changing that conversation for them in the way that I've been able to do it in the Planning Institute, but also the real impact in terms of the recognition of the role of construction globally going forward. So the World Economic Forum has said, of the top 5 growing jobs over the next few decades, construction is one of them.
Yeah.
So AI will be significant within it, but the need to bring more people into construction is significant to deliver the homes, the infrastructure, etc., that is very much needed. And so, the opportunity to get that right from a sustainability point of view and sustainable development goals is huge. The opportunity to get that right from a safety perspective, from a diversity perspective, those 3 kind of pillars within it, that's going to be a big priority for me. But as is helping ensure, in the same way I hope I've done with planning, is ensuring that construction industry comes out from being perhaps the Cinderella of the built environment and has their debut on the stage. They're up there with everybody else. They're a really important part of it. Nothing gets built without a planning consent, but nothing gets built without somebody to build it, and the things have got to work very closely together. And so I'm excited about the future. I am leaving with a bit of a heavy heart because I do have those moments where I think, why on earth would you leave planning just when it's getting really exciting?
Yes.
But I think I want to go at the top of the crest, and I'm riding it, and my successor can get on that crest and ride it for a little bit longer, hopefully.
Victoria, thank you so much for coming in and for sharing your thoughts with us and your experience and your reflections on your time as chief executive. Please do stick around. We're going to have a chat with Frances now. So we'd be really interested to know what you'd like to ask Frances as well. So, hi, Frances.
Hello.
Hi. So you have been the RTPI Young Planner of the Year since December last year?
Yeah, I suppose the baton gets handed over at the award ceremony. So November time, yeah.
So for the benefit of the listener, we're recording this on November the 12th. The RTPI Awards are on November the 27th.
Yes.
And that's when the new RTPI Young Planner of the Year will be announced. This will be broadcast, this podcast will be broadcast after that date. So by the time you hear this, Frances will no longer be the RTPI Young Planner of the Year. So have you enjoyed your time, Frances?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's hard to sum it up, really. I think Victoria touched on it, feeling like a whirlwind and you don't know where time goes. This year has been hectic. I think I've had to balance huge planning changes. You mentioned the construction industry. I mean, I work in house building, so there's a lot of synergy from what you've just said, Victoria, and we're experiencing huge levels of growth, and I've had to balance that with being Young Planner of the Year, which has been an amazing experience, and I'm really glad to continue the legacy of many West Midlands regional winners, so I'm really pleased.
What does the Young Planner of the Year do?
So essentially, I'd probably sum it up as like a supporting role and being a voice for young planners across the UK and all our nations and regions. Victoria and me sat down at the beginning of the year and she sort of sets out an agenda of all the presidential related visits and dinners and trips and conferences that, well, my president Helen would have gone on. I know that's due to change in Jan. And then I kind of attend with you on that. And I think initially I thought it was potentially more of a sit in the background, more make an observation, that kind of traditional role of a younger person, or early career professional, I should say. But actually, it wasn't really that. It was I was thrown in at the deep end and always invited into a conversation and, put at the forefront. And I could think many times when we were in America and, sat around dinner tables, like holding conversations with people I'd never met from different countries. And it was a great experience.
Yes, and if I could just add to that, that ambassadorial role is something that we've grown during my tenureship to ensure that we don't just hand out the award, but we've got a very talented, recognised individual. Let's make the most of that. Let's celebrate some of the stories. Let's get them involved and let's get them telling the stories because, of course, I've got people who follow me on my LinkedIn, but Frances will have a whole different cohort of people, and coming to some of those meetings, some of those trips has been really powerful at showcasing the role of the profession and the young planner within it. And just one other point to add, a lot of the time we learn from our American counterparts over at the APA, the American Planning Association, and they have a much bigger conference, and it's a different magnitude of scale. But one area that they don't have and they want to learn from us is this National Young Planner of the Year. And, they love the idea. And Frances was made to feel very welcome over there. And just having, that ambassador, the spokesperson, it's just been a really great way for us to celebrate the broad range of what we do and who we are. And thank you again, Frances, because I think you've done such a great job, as you say, being thrown in the deep end. But of course, you've done brilliantly, and it was only ever going to be that way.
Thank you.
Frances, has it lived up to your expectations and what have your highlights been?
I think it's definitely surpassed expectations. I touched on being a West Midlands winner, and obviously I've got friends now for life really that have kind of gave me a few hints and tips, but definitely surpassed expectations. I think, and I'd say that because of kind of the volume and breadth of stuff that I was involved in. I think highlight can't go without saying a trip to the American conference is always a highlight, I think, for any young planner. I think stepping outside of traditional planning as we know it, outside of the UK's, and listening to the conversations you have over there. I mean, it's like Victoria said, it's a completely different scale, and sat in a room with thousands and thousands of planners is something to behold. And, I think we can take a lot of learning from that. But I think for me, I was, reflecting on this the other day and thinking actually, one of my biggest highlights was actually judging the next National Young Planner of the Year, because being in this role has allowed me to be more in touch with the wider regions across the UK, not just where I practice planning, and listening to the stories of what people have achieved. It's just really inspirational, and I'm just like really glad that I was in this role and have, like I say, passed the baton on to I know who the winner is going to be, but someone that is going to be championing it just as much as I have.
Yeah. And on that then, so what advice would you give to the next young planner?
I think Victoria's already mentioned this, but just to take every opportunity, I really have tried to do that. I've barely said no to anything, which has run me ragged at times, but I'm really pleased I have. And just, I think, don't be afraid. I think I'm only early in my career, and he started planning in April 2018. There we go. There's some synergy. So me and Victoria have been in planning in the role of CFO at the same amount of time. I think just don't be afraid in your abilities. It is an ambassadorial role. There is a lot of it presenting. I've spoke at conferences. I've stood up on big stages with hundreds of people looking at me, which isn't part of my day job normally. So I think just not to be afraid. I think the RTPI have been really wonderful in supporting me along that. And I've often said, I've been invited to this. Would you support me in going? And they've said yes. So yeah, not to be afraid is my message to the next person.
Yeah.
I would just add to that, there's a really important thing here about trusting other people's judgment. So you mentioned that you've been on the judging panel for the next Young Planner of the Year. And you mentioned also when you started out, you're sort of feeling a bit uncertain. You've been chosen for a reason. Other people have put their trust in you. They've used their judgment. I think just run with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned, feeling run ragged at times. How have you managed to balance your working commitments with being Young Planner of the Year? Has that been a struggle for you, or have you managed to adapt to that? Have you had a sort of tolerant employer?
Yeah, I work for Spitfire Homes, so we're a small to medium house builder in the Midlands, and I did brief them going into the National Awards last November going, you do realise if I win this, what it's going to involve? No, they've been really accommodating, and I think setting out all of the key milestones at the beginning of the year helped, and I think you just adapt really. I mean, I'm currently the lead planner for our business, so me stepping out, does leave a hole. There isn't any planners to fill it. So I think it's, as Victoria probably well knows, it's working on an airplane, working on a train, taking a call past 5 o'clock, sitting in my hotel room and answering a few emails here or there. It's work from home, but it's work from home with a bit of style.
And that work ethic, if I may, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. That's why you won, Frances, and, you'll take that with you. That flexibility, you don't feel begrudged from having to do that because you've been given this opportunity and you want to make the most of it. And I just want to pay tribute to your employer, Spitfire Homes, because, that is a sign of a really great employer that's willing to invest. You're more likely to stay with them longer than you would have done if they turned around and said, no, actually, we don't want you doing that because we need you here, 100% of the time to do that. And I think that give and take is just such a really positive story. So just wanted to say a couple of words on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
As Young Planner of the Year, what have you learned about yourself? And perhaps what advice would you give yourself stepping into the role this time last year?
I'm a person that probably has quite a lot of self-belief anyway, in general. I've always believed in myself. I've always, that work hard ethic. I think me and Victoria probably have a lot of synergies, and we've probably spoken about it before together. But just, again, I've mentioned it, but confidence in my abilities and just being adaptable. I think it's quite easy to get siloed into a very traditional way of working, doing your 9 till 5, going home. But I think I've just been really proud how I've managed to adapt at short time scales. I think when things are so busy in work and your personal life, it's quite often that you're going to present and you've got 48 hours notice, and that would normally fill me with dread, thinking, I'm not prepared enough. But actually it's having the self-confidence to know that, well, there's no one better to speak about what you do day to day or you personally than yourself. I think you've got to have a self-belief. And I think if I didn't know it before, I definitely know it now.
Are we saying there's a Keenan gene?
Oh, I'd like to think there's a Keenan gene.
Yes,
for sure.
Thank you so much for coming in. It's been really wonderful to hear from you both.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today. I just want to say a few words about the Women of Influence. And I would like to say just thank you, Frances, for your support on the Women of Influence this year. And also to Victoria for championing the Women of Influence campaign and also just championing women as a woman. I just think it's great to see you out there doing that. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Nominations are open now as you're listening to this podcast for the 2026 campaign. So who has influenced you personally or has influenced the planning profession as a whole in the last year? We want to know about them. She doesn't have to be a planner. but her work will probably or definitely have impacted planners and the planning profession. The deadline is the 20th of January. We're thinking about Christmas now already, but yeah, the new year, so good thing to be thinking about as we start the next year. And you can find all the details on the website. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you in the new year.
Thank you very much.